Okay, let's get right into it. Today, we're diving deep into one of the world's most tangled conflicts, but we're going to do it by going right back to the beginning, to the ancient competing claims that are at the very heart of it all. And really, this is the question at the heart of it all, isn't it? You have one tiny strip of land, two ancient names. How on earth did it become the flashpoint for a global conflict? We're going to trace the origins of those names to really get a handle on the claims they represent.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with those ancient names, then trace how two modern national movements popped up. We'll look at the absolutely pivotal year of 1948, understand the cycle of conflict that spun out of it, and we'll end by asking, what could it possibly take to look forward?
First things first, we have to turn back the clock. I mean, way back. The names themselves, Israel and Palestine, they didn't just appear out of nowhere. They have these deep, very distinct histories that are literally etched into the landscape.
This land has been defined by these massive waves of conquest and culture. It all kicks off with Israel appearing over 3,000 years ago. Then it continues through Roman rule, and that's when the name Palestina was imposed. After that, a huge shift, nearly 1,200 years of Muslim control, and finally, it lands under British authority after World War I. Every single layer here is absolutely essential to the story.
So the first known reference we have to Israel is on an ancient Egyptian stone tablet called the Merneptah stele. And what's so fascinating is that it refers to a people, not a place. It was only later that Israel became the name of a kingdom in the region.
And right next door was the Kingdom of Judah, which gives us this direct link to modern identity. The name Judah is the actual origin of the word Jew. So even after conquests and exiles, this territory stayed the spiritual heart of Judaism for centuries.
So then where does Palestine come from? Well, the name was officially given to the region by the Roman Emperor Hadrian. And the timing here is everything. This happened right after he crushed a massive Jewish revolt, and many people see it as a pretty clear attempt to erase the Jewish connection to the land by naming it after their ancient enemies, the Philistines.
Then came the next major shift. After the Islamic conquest in the 7th century, the demographic and cultural landscape just changed dramatically. Arab people settled here, and for the next 1,200 years, a really long time, the land became predominantly Arab and was governed by Muslim rulers.
Okay, now let's see how this ancient history starts to build into the modern era, because the late 19th century saw the birth of two powerful national movements that set their sights on the very same land, each one seeing it as their rightful home.
Zionism really came from a place of crisis. With anti-Semitism just exploding across Europe, many Jews began to believe that the only way to ever be safe was to establish their own state back in their ancestral homeland, the land of ancient Israel and Judah.
But here's the thing. When Jewish immigrants started arriving, the land wasn't empty. It was part of the Ottoman Empire, and its population was overwhelmingly Arab, a people who also, quite naturally, considered it their ancestral homeland. This is where the two modern claims collide head-on. After World War I, the British took control, creating what they called Mandatory Palestine. Now here's a crucial point. At this time, the Arab identity was paramount. The idea of a separate, distinct Palestinian national identity would develop later, and it was largely in response to the growing Zionist movement. This brings us to the single most important year in this entire story, 1948. It's a year that means birth to one people and disaster to another, and understanding both perspectives is absolutely key.
So, in the wake of the Holocaust, the brand new United Nations proposed a solution: divide the land. Resolution 181 called for two states, one Jewish and one Arab. Zionist leaders accepted the plan, but it was immediately and flatly rejected by Arab leaders, which set the stage for war.
And the war came swiftly. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared its existence. For Jewish Israelis, the fighting that followed is their war of independence, a desperate struggle for survival that resulted in a nation. For Palestinians, that same war is al-Nakba, or the catastrophe, which meant the loss of their homeland and the start of a refugee crisis that continues to this day.
The sheer scale of that catastrophe is captured in this one number. 700,000 people were displaced from their homes. They became refugees, and to this day, they and their descendants have not been granted the right to return.
The events of 1948 didn't end the conflict. They actually set the pattern for decades to come, a cycle of wars, occupation, and uprisings that continues to shape the lives of everyone in the region.
The next major turning point was the 1967 Six-Day War. Israel won a decisive military victory, but in doing so, it captured territories with large Palestinian populations, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. This marked the beginning of a military occupation that is now over half a century long.
Well, living under occupation for so long led to mass uprisings known as intifadas. The first one was mostly characterized by civil disobedience and protests, but the second intifada was far more violent, and it was defined by a brutal wave of suicide bombings that targeted Israeli civilians.
Israel's response to that violence was to build the West Bank barrier. From an Israeli perspective, it was a security necessity that proved incredibly effective at stopping attacks. But for Palestinians, it became another symbol of occupation, cutting through communities and making daily life even harder.
All through this period, Jewish settlement in the occupied territories has grown and grown, and this is a major point of contention. Most of the world considers these settlements illegal under international law, and their continued expansion just makes the idea of creating a viable, independent Palestinian state that much more difficult.
So after tracing all of this history, we're left with the fundamental problem. Both peoples have deep, legitimate, historical claims to the very same land. How do you possibly move forward from that?
The source material for this explainer offers a really powerful metaphor. The idea that after so much pain and loss on both sides, the rivers of blood that have been spilled must somehow, someday, become water under the bridge.
And that leaves us with this final, essential question. There are no easy answers here, but understanding the depth of both historical claims, of Israel and of Palestine, is the first absolutely necessary step to even begin thinking about what a shared future could ever look like.